This is a video that is going to be very difficult for me to make. It's because it's about a topic that I think is very controversial. It certainly impacted me on a personal level and on a professional level. I don't know anybody who hasn't at some point had infidelity or heartbreak be a part of their life. So, what exactly is infidelity? There's sexual infidelity, there's emotional infidelity. How people define infidelity can be very different. In my experience, I've had people come into therapy who are both victims of infidelity, which is one aspect of working through that. And then I've had people who come into therapy because they've cheated. When we think about the type of person who is like a serial cheater or kind of like this narcissistic entitlement, lack of empathy, these people do exist and they come into our lives sometimes. And from my perspective as a therapist, these are not the people that are coming into therapy. Often, when people come into therapy for infidelity, they're struggling a lot. They feel a lot of regret and they're highly motivated to change, or at least they're motivated to come into therapy to talk about what's going on because some part of them knows that this is not who they want to be. It's not the best version of themselves. So there are many different reasons that somebody might cheat. Sometimes it's emotional avoidance, that this is somebody that through their experiences in childhood and in life, they've developed an avoidant attachment style, which means that for them, intimacy and vulnerability is so frightening. They say, you know, before you do this to me, I'm going to do it to you. And it might not even be a conscious thought, but this is the basic process. Another reason that I've seen is people that are lonely in their relationships. It can be anywhere from an abusive relationship in which they feel totally isolated. They end up going and having an affair with somebody, to they just have gone into complacency in their relationship. It's been many years. They're moved away from their partner, and what was once a loving, intimate relationship has now become, roommates living together. And then they meet somebody that they're attracted to, and one thing leads to the next. I'm going to give an example of a case, and I'm going to be really vague to protect this person's confidentiality. This person was in a relationship with somebody who wanted him to take on a certain role sexually that was really opposite to how he experienced his sexuality. There were many factors here that led to pressure for him to compromise his own sexual desire and even personality to meet the needs of his partner. This person has a history of childhood abuse, which in his case made him prone to wanting to please another person rather than to think about his own needs. Also came from a family in which it was not appropriate to discuss his own needs and his feelings. And so he spent his life burying what he really desired. You've got this relationship where this individual is engaging in sex acts that are not compatible with his personality and desires. He feels a huge amount of pressure to conform to this, and he never even learned how to talk about his feelings, to even say, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling this isn't making me comfortable. Things like that he couldn't express. Time goes by, and there's a huge amount of pressure, a huge amount of anxiety to the point where he's actually dreading having sex with his partner. And what ended up happening is he cheated. And afterwards, he felt horrible. And when his partner found out, of course, the partner was devastated, and they broke up. If he comes in and says, "I cheated on my partner and I need help and I feel guilty and I don't know what to do with my life or how to handle this situation," which is what he said. If I just rolled my eyes and scoffed and said, "Oh, once a cheater, always a cheater. Look, you're evil. You deserve what's happened to you," right? That would be abusive, and it'd be a horrible therapist that would do that. And yet, this is essentially the message that we hear from our family and friends, from culture as a whole, and on social media, all these things. And it does not get to the nuance of this person's story and experience, and it's not helpful. So, how does healing work from this situation? Despite all these factors that may have led to you cheating, you might have to sacrifice. This is the time in your life in which you've made a mistake and hurt someone, and you might lose them. And part of the therapy process is acknowledging and working through the grief of losing someone. And this might end up being an important experience that is going to shape who you are today and how your future is. And it's really sad. And this is also part of the burden of responsibility. So there's a type of therapy which was developed by Richard Schwartz called internal family systems, or IFS. There are different parts of us that can direct our feelings or our behaviors in different ways, and they have different roles. Let's say that you get invited to dinner, and there's a part of you that wants to go to the dinner because you want to connect with your friend, and then there's another part of you that wants to stay at home and eat ice cream and watch Netflix and just be alone. That's essentially what he's talking about. One thing he talks about are the firefighter parts of us. And firefighters are there to put out intense emotions. They tend to be reactive. Let's say you're really stressed out, you're getting overwhelmed. A healthy firefighter is going to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to give myself some space from this and I'm going to look at the sky and I'm going to relax. Many of us have firefighters that are developed early in our life that are more impulsive that can get us into trouble. And so if we become really overwhelmed, we might go to drinking alcohol, or we might go to binge eating, or we might go to playing video games all day. This is a firefighter part that's trying to help us cope. And so cheating can be a firefighter. And I think in this case of this client, the firefighter came out. All these pressures were building up, and his firefighter said, you know what? I'm going to avoid, I'm going to go and seek that sensation I'm needing. It's going to be purely sexual. And then once the fire was put out, he felt a huge amount of regret, guilt, sadness, and then the relationship ended. Part of IFS is finding these protective parts of ourselves and having the firefighter become something that's more healthy. I think the key is to not condone harm, but to understand that there's complexity here. With work, people that have cheated can become loyal, respectful partners. It's not once a cheater, always a cheater. And I think transformation is possible when there's is present because that means that you actually feel bad. Infidelity doesn't necessarily mean that you can't love again or be loved. I think a lot of healing and growth is possible, and a lot of positivity can come from tragedy, including from infidelity.